WCW Halloween Havoc 1996. No, this is not the one with the monster trucks. It's okay, there's not zero monster trucks on this show. You got to have at least one monster truck. So, to sum up, there's one less monster truck on this show than the previous year, but there's also one more Jeff Jarrett. So I think the math balances out there, but all that and more on Slim Jim's Apron Bump Podcast.
Yeah. And the hardest, talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock this. Let's get started. Yeah.
What's up, everybody? How the hell are you? How the gosh darn heck are you, everybody? Welcome to the Apron Bump Podcast. I am your host, the hardest part of the ring, Kyle Bird. WrestleMania season's upon us, folks. You know, talking real time as of recording this. We're, I don't know, 2 weeks or so before WrestleMania, week and a half ski. How we feeling? Are our cockles tickled for Philadelphia this weekend or next weekend? I don't know what day it is. I thought it was November earlier today. I just fucking said it's February as if that was the right answer. It's almost April. So time is a circle. Time is a social construct, and yeah. So that's where I'm at. That's where Daddy is in the head today. Regardless, we have an action-packed show today. We're talking a little Halloween Havoc, 1996. NWO Running Wild is the overall theme. I would say the overall theme of this show is the NWO is kind of trying to finalize their takeover of the WCW. We've added a lot of members since we last looked at WCW. Fall Brawl 96 was the latest episode, which, by the way, if you want to hop along this timeline, we started WCW back in Spring Stampede 1994. So we've covered every single pay-per-view since then. And boy, howdy, it has been a boiling bucket of dog shit, most of it. But past few months have been pretty good. And this show here, I would say at least maintains, the neutral speed. You know, I wouldn't say this is the best show of the year, or is it? Because you're going to have to stay tuned till the end of the podcast, where we not only grade this show, but we continue the hardest promotion battle of 1996, competition between WCW, WWF, and ECW. So we will look at the show as of the date of the show. We'll compare what WCW is doing with what WWF and ECW are doing. See if this show brought us any of the best or the worst of the year. And we got another one. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Whoever wins, whichever company has the most points at the end of 1996, will earn a purchase from myself. I will purchase a championship belt representing that company, and I'll hold it, maybe in the background of the podcast. Maybe I'll put it around my shoulder. Maybe I'll hang it from my dong, a la John Morrison, or we'll experiment with it. I am big into experimenting. So lots going on with that. What else? Oh, I think I didn't finish my thought earlier. If you want to hop along this timeline of WCW, join the journey. I'll leave a link in the show notes for you for a link to my website, apronbump.com. You can filter to the episodes tab to whatever promotion, whatever era you'd like to hear me recap. You could select WCW, and that'll bring you to all of the WCW events that I've recapped with various guests. It's been a hoot, and there's always content, if nothing else. A lot of times these podcasts are at least for me, in doing them, they're more entertaining than watching the shows. At least like 95 it was. But like I said, we're getting into a better era here. Late 96. I would say the entire wrestling landscape is pretty hot, or it's at least heating up. We got a little rolling boil happening. Maybe we don't have, flames abound, but we got a little sizzle. We put the meat on the little the deal, and we got a little. That's where we're at. That's where we're at. I don't even know what I'm talking about at this point, but Halloween Havoc's a good show. We got Macho Man versus Hollywood Hogan for the world title in the main event. We got the debut of Jeff Jarrett. We also got another interesting debut at the very end of this show, which might be one of the worst debuts of all time. So I'll just give you that. I'll leave you with that little ball tease there. We got DDP continuing his rise when he faces Eddie Guerrero. We got an amazing match between Dean Malenko and Rey Mysterio to open the show. That could be a contender for match of the year. We'll have to work through it at the end of the episode here, but a couple tag matches. We got the Outsiders, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall facing the Harlem Heat for the tag team titles. We got the Dungeon of Doom is here. The Horsemen are here. The NWO, of course. A lot of factions, a lot of hullabaloo. It's interesting seeing everything kind of working around the NWO, and not all of it is good. So, but that prompts some interesting discussions here amongst the chaos with my guest, BC Hunter, from Wrestling with the 80s, Wrestling with the Truth, Wrestling with his sexuality, joins me on today's show. I think I made that joke on the last time he was on here, but fuck it. We're rehashing. Returning to the show, always a good time with old BC, old big coochie Hunter. I assume that's what the BC stands for. Check out the Wrestling with the Truth podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. It's where old BC mostly rants about the current product of professional wrestling. It's always interesting to hear an angry Canadian. You know, it's like a 5-leaf clover. You never really see it. But also check out Wrestling with the 80s on YouTube, which is his YouTube channel, obviously dedicated to Wrestling with the 80s. And it's a very, very interesting YouTube channel. He does a lot of deep dives into just like kind of what if scenarios, a lot of wrestler spotlights, a lot of just me personally, as somebody who is not super familiar with the 80s. It's always a great watch. It's always fun learning stuff, and he always puts an entertaining spin onto it. So go check that out. All of these shenanigans will be in the show notes as well. So go check them out. Give them a subscribe. Give them a follow. Hey, do the same to me. Why don't you, if you're watching on YouTube, ring the bell, ring my balls, and hit the subscribe button. Hit the like. Leave a comment if you're listening in audio land. Why don't you throw a 5-star rating or a 5.25 if I say Will Ospreay, will that count? Leave a review. I don't know. Follow me on all the social medias at Apron Bump, TikTok. I'm becoming a big TikToker nowadays. So do that if you're not on the train already. Twitter, I'm oh, if I didn't have to promote my show, I'd be off that garbage immediately. But I think we even talk about that at the end. I forget if that's like during the recording or not, but we get into a little we shit on Twitter a little bit towards the end here. But that being said, I think I've rambled enough. Why don't we just get in the Slim Jim monster truck and skirt our way into this episode? Rum, 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 rum. Do I still have monster truck noises? Hold on, let me see here. Bike. I have a bike noise. Does this sound like a monster truck? Yeah. Brum, 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 brum. I don't know why I'm still like making noises with my mouth. By the way, I'm not wearing headphones, so I don't know how unbearable that sounded. But all right, let's hit play on this bad boy. WCW Halloween Havoc, 1996. With myself and BC Hunter from Wrestling with the Wars, Wrestling with the 80s, and Wrestling... I already said Wrestling with my sexuality. Wrestling with... I'm
in Nova Scotia, so... Yeah. It's been shitty weather. That's what it's been. Just rain and hurricane-like winds and stuff like that. So,
I was about to ask what shitty weather entails up there, because it's always shitty, I think, right? Pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah. No igloos though. That's the only thing.
Next thing you're going to tell me you don't go outside and spear seals for breakfast.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, we ride them to school every day, right?
Right. Yeah, of course. I mean,
like ice skates. Yeah.
Yeah. The Mounties there. It's a whole thing, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Literally, Jacques Rougeau comes up every day and arrests people.
Well, I think he's the emperor of Canada, right? It's emperor up there. Yeah.
Yeah. Trudeau is just a false flag. It's actually Rougeau.
Right. Yeah. I figured. I'm glad we're getting to the bottom of this here. It's not all about the wrestling. It's we get to the real issues.
The meat and potatoes, as they say.
Yes, they say maybe the meat stick and potatoes. But speaking of meat sticks, Slim Jim's Halloween Havoc, pal.
I know.
Yeah. What'd you think? Did you get a chance to rewatch the show?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I got nervous for a second. I'm like, oh, God, is this 95? Like thinking it was the Battle of the Monster Trucks. I'm like, no, wait, no. God, it's not. It's 96. So
you wouldn't want to watch that?
I've already watched that and did that for my own show. And,
right.
That was enough.
You were set. What else was on that? That was not a good show from what I remember, even outside of the monster trucks.
Yeah, it was not. I mean, he killed him. How do you come back from that? And then,
well, he did. So
the Yeti and stuff like that, right? So
yeah. Oh, Ron Studd. You a big Ron Studd guy?
I love the name Big Ron Studd. It's like, let's blatantly rip off and let's rip it off, but we'll just change one letter and we should be fine. It's like, Hulk Logan or something like that, right?
Didn't they? Oh my God. Wasn't there some Hogan jobber?
Randy Hogan.
That's who it was. It's like Hulk Hogan on Temu or whatever the fuck.
It's like the irony. That should have been a jobber in the WWE, to be quite honest. When those guys moved over. But yeah, Randy Hogan. Yeah.
Well, they had fucking Nacho Man and what was Hogan's Huckster. Yeah.
Scheme Gene. Yeah.
Isn't it back on Ron Studd? I really need to dive deep on him. It's crazy that he was just a jobber in WCW, at least from what I've seen. I mean, this dude's 8 feet tall. You would think they would try to do something with him. Add him to the NWO at least. Which I don't think he was ever NWO, was he?
No, he was in Raven's Flock, right?
Oh, I don't know. See, my knowledge of WCW is very, I've obviously covered what I've covered so far, but I kind of have loose knowledge because I never really grew up watching WCW. And I mean, you have, right? I mean, judging by your podcast, it seems like you did, right?
Yeah. I was around for the war. Yeah.
Where do you, so we're here in October of 1996. So you were watching both WWF and WCW at this point live?
Yeah. Yep.
Did you have like an allegiance towards either side at this point? If you remember?
Yes, 1 second here. Sorry about that. Yeah, no, I was a WWF guy because that's what I grew up watching, right? Like right from the mid 80s. So it's funny, I was just commenting on something on Twitter today about the first thing that hooked you on wrestling. It was like 86 for me. It was Hogan, Orndorff. So growing up, I grew up. That was prime time to be a WWF fan because you had Saturday Night's Main Event and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't like I was aware of the NWA, i.e. WCW, because of the magazines. That's what I was getting. I couldn't get the actual programming on TV up here in Canada. Yeah. The best we could get is AWA and Stampede Wrestling. And AWA at that time was not good. It was on its way out. But the magazines, and then in about 89, I think, is when we started getting TBS here. And that's when and what a great year to start seeing NWA, because I'd heard all this stuff, and it's like the Flair Steamboat trilogy years, right? And great Muda and stuff like that. So I was a fan of both. It's not like today where you got to pick one, or you're doomed if you don't show allegiance to one. I liked both, to be quite honest, and I was happy that WCW was starting to gain some traction again because they got really bad right before it, and then the Dangerous Alliance came around, and that really kind of bolstered them again. And then we kind of got into that. Well, you probably covered it a little bit, but that really, really, really bad time when Hogan first went to WCW, and and it was just a rehash of just Hogan versus the Monsters and just brutal. Yeah. And then once the NWO started, that's when it was really cooking at that point. But Yeah, I'm like, I wasn't looking for failure for either. I was like, this is great.
Mhm.
There's two really cool things to watch, and I just finished watching your episode with Duke and Rogue
Mm.
today, and you were talking about In Your House. And I remember that was to me that was one of those cards that was a real turning point because you had that Michaels Mankind match, which was phenomenal, and
Right.
then we delve into Survivor Series, which is Austin and Brett, which one of my favorite matches of all time, and so everything was heating up really well at this point.
Yeah. Do you prefer the Survivor Series match over their WrestleMania match?
No, I still take the WrestleMania match just because there's so many good storylines just thrown in there,
Mhm.
but I think the Survivor Series match gets slept on a lot. I still love the way that match was laid out and just the ending, and it's again, I just saw a clip the other day just of Brett talking about that with, Austin, just making sure that Austin looks strong in defeat in both those matches, and,
Mhm.
mission accomplished for both of them.
Yeah, I've never seen the Survivor Series match actually, so I'm
Oh, yeah,
excited to get
okay.
to that pretty soon
Yep.
here. But yeah, at this point, I would say that the business is definitely heating up at this point. Obviously, we got the NWO on the WCW side, which we're going to get a lot into here.
Yes.
Um, but like you were mentioning, Mind Games, like Sean's on top. He's having great matches seemingly every time he's out there. And you got
Yep.
Mankind and Taker revving up. You got Brett and Stone Cold revving up. So you got like even like the
Goldust was
Intercontinental.
pushing the limits and stuff like that too, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Ahmed
Yeah.
Johnson, Mark
Yeah.
Marrow, Triple H is almost done with his punishment. So like there's some
Okay, I
good
got a
stuff all
question for
around.
you. I got a question for you, Kyle.
Three inches
You're
flaccid, two erect. What was that not your question? Sorry.
I thought it was Batista's we were going to talk about, but yeah. So you're obviously, like you said, you're kind of seeing some of the stuff for the first time.
Mhm.
What were your thoughts on Ahmed Johnson looking back on it now?
He definitely I like him. I mean, he
Mhm.
because he's definitely like there's nobody else like him, especially at the point. Um, in 1996. He's just like very I generally find myself fans of guys that are a little rough around the edges, like not
Yep.
super smooth. Even though, look at it from a worker's standpoint, obviously it's not really what you want, but
Mhm.
like the Goldbergs, like people post gifs of Goldberg dropping people on their head. And it's like, okay, as
Mhm.
a fan, I kind of like that, even though
Mhm.
obviously it's not what you want. But Ahmed Johnson, he's when he talks, you can't understand what he's saying. He's just a bull in a china shop, and I love it. He's so wet, jacked, the power bomb, the music, all of it. The more wet you are, the more inclined I'm going to be a fan of you, which is why I'm a big
Yeah.
Lex Luger fan as well. So,
Big Sid fan, I imagine too.
oh, dude, I
A lot
have
of wetness
turned
there. A lot of wetness.
180 on Sid. When I first started watching
Yeah.
Sid here, when he was like in the $1 Million Corporation, I was like, all right, I don't really not feeling it. But man, you turn him babyface, you let him loose. Just oh man, it's great stuff. Even Luger kind of the same. I've kind of
Yep.
become a bigger fan of Luger the more I watch him. So
96, 97 run for both those guys is their best. Well, I
oh
mean,
yeah,
obviously Luger, like say like 87, 88, but come on, but 96, 97 compared to the 94 run, what a great job they did with both those guys.
yeah. You weren't a part of the Lex Express.
No, I was
you
not.
you weren't all aboard.
He lost me when he celebrated the count-out victory over Yoko at the
Oof.
SummerSlam. I mean, come on. Seriously.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Well,
Mm.
we get some count outs here, I believe, on this show. Or
Yeah.
DQs, whatever. It's kind of a gray
Yep.
area. And some fucky finishes here, all because it is WCW
Mhm.
after all. And even like when stuff's good, like it seems like they never have like a good finish to these matches. They're all kind of like I said, we'll get into it. But
Yeah.
overall, Halloween Havoc 96. Thoughts, thumbs up, thumbs down, thumb up your ass.
Yeah.
What do you throw at it?
I don't want to spoil anything, because I want to make sure people listen to the very end to get our overall thoughts on this. But spoken like a true podcaster.
Get that
But
retention.
yeah, it's I would say it's a tale of two shows, is what I would say. Like when I started watching this, I watched it last night just so it'd be fresh. And when I started watching it, I was like, this is pretty good to start off with. It seemed like it was moving along quickly, even though the first match was long, but that match was great. So you
Mhm.
can't fault that. But I felt like it was moving along pretty good. There was some entertaining stuff. We got some good wrestling action for sure. And then all of a sudden, as soon as the NWO started coming into play, it seemed like it just kind of started to slow down a little bit. And then we'll save the end for the end because that's that really made a difference in the whole feeling of the pay-per-view.
I would say this might be the worst pay-per-view ending I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
I mean, what the fuck?
I mean, immediately when I saw what happened, I'm like, it just flashed back to Sting's retirement match, right? And how everybody complained about going off the air. And I'm like, oh, well, why don't you watch this show then?
Yeah, I don't think people back in '96 would be seeking out the rest of that promo, though.
Oh,
you know what I
mean? No. That Old Yeller needed to be put down at that point.
Yeah. Good start. Good debut at the end here, folks. A little tease there, but before that, we got so I don't know if you realized this watching the show. Slim Jim was sponsoring the show. I don't know if you realized it.
It was not evident.
Yeah.
It was slightly after the giant monster truck is when I realized they were sponsoring the show, but only after that. Yeah.
Right. Not the Slim Jim corner posts.
No. Not the t-shirts that they were wearing with the Slim Jim logo, like the Dusty and Bobby and Shivani. Not the draw for the monster truck, which I want to get into that.
Oh, don't you worry. We will.
Not the countless references to Slim Jim. Not even that giant monster truck, because I still had questions, but it seemed like it was after that when Macho Man had the match.
Boy, I got a lot of monster truck questions when we get to that point. But I mean, 2 Halloween Havocs in a row where monster trucks are the focal point. But
yeah, they were really big on the monster trucks. Yeah.
What do you think of these polos of the commentators that they're wearing? Matching polos. Do they have Slim Jim on them?
They have the logo, the guy, the monster holding the Halloween Havoc Slim Jim sign there. Yeah, that's what they had on them. But they worked for Shivani and Heenan, but Dusty and Apollo is just not doing it for me, man.
I kind of liked it. His was a little more fitted.
It was fitted.
It was maybe. I mean, every shirt's probably fitted on him, but yeah. So that's how the show opens up. It also opens up with a package. Kind of reliving the build up to the show. Obviously, very heavy on the NWO. We got so where we are in the NWO timeline, we've begun to add members. So the Giant has been added to the fold, as well as Virgil, or was he Vincent? Ted DiBiase, Six debuted, aka X-Pac. Who am I forgetting? I think I'm forgetting somebody. I might be at this point.
No, I think that's it. Yeah. This is pretty much where they should have stopped,
Right. Yeah, it's interesting because I've always heard that like the NWO just got way out of hand. So I'm like kind of trying to see where that balance kind of shifts. But I think at this point they're running pretty solid here. But
yeah,
it's really the back half of the show be more NWO heavy. But and there was a Nitro leading up to this where a lot of the WCW wrestlers went to Japan to wrestle. And this allowed NWO to kind of take over the show. So it was like the whole show, like the Giant came in and he was the ring announcer.
Yeah.
Like Ted DiBiase came in and took over commentary, and it was just non-finishes and beatdowns for like the last hour of the show at least. So they're really putting over this NWO here. I mean, we hadn't really seen anything like this, at least in, American mainstream TV for sure. I mean, what did you think of this NWO, like as it was happening, as it was building? Did you know it was a big deal at this point?
Never heard them.
Yeah, they're kind of some indie band, I think.
Yeah, they're not the Elite, so
No.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, just absolutely unbelievable angle that they did, and it was such a marked difference for WCW for being more gritty and real versus WWE, which was so cartoony at that point. So I know Bischoff always talks about, well, whether it's true or not, he wrote things down. He said, okay, well, let's do the opposite of what they're doing. We'll use the real names versus use the gimmick names. We'll be black and white versus all the colors that WWE has. And it worked. Honestly, it worked. I mean, one thing that, was evident, because again, like I had to put myself back to that time frame. Like, geez, this is only what? It was July when the Hogan turn happened, was it not?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, okay. So we're talking 4 months since Hogan had the biggest turn in wrestling history, right? I mean, that's a pretty big deal. And then we're only 6 months out of Hall's famous showing up and his whole speech. And so I put myself back to that time and thinking, wow, this is pretty cool. Like, this is pretty cool what they did. And it was miles above what WWE was doing at that time. Although you could feel WWE starting to get a little bit gritty themselves, but they weren't quite there yet. But yeah, I mean, what can you say? The original NWO incarnation was so well done, so good. Although, as you mentioned, they were really starting to get into that whole a little too much of the beatdowns and the taking over and stuff like that. I mean, not so much. I know what they were trying to do with their gang and all that, but it felt like they shouldn't have been able to get so much access to people at this point. I think,
Yeah.
it's becoming a little bit obvious that they're working together with that. But yeah, overall, and then of course we'll get to it in the Hall Nash match, but it's unbelievable how much of a cool factor they brought to
Oh
WCW
yeah.
and to the NWO side of things, especially compared to Hogan in the next match.
Yeah, no, it's just natural for them compared to
Yeah.
Hogan for sure. And it was striking to me because your point, it's only been a few months since the NWO has kind of
Yeah.
started. And it's crazy how over they are already. Like there's the
Mhm.
NWO shirts are all over the place already. It seems like every time there was an NWO wrestler in the ring, they were the more favored by the crowd.
Yeah.
So it's
Mhm.
already, they're already gaining steam here. But maybe at the
What's
expense of other
freaky
stuff, but who knows?
What's freaky too, Kyle, is like in a few months, then you all of a sudden you have the explosion of Austin too, right? Like it's like
Yes.
in this time frame, in a 1 year time frame, you had two of the biggest entities ever occur, which is amazing to me.
Yeah, no, we're building to the Attitude Era here, which is very
Mhm.
evident. But before that, we opened this bad boy up with a cruiserweight title match. The champion, Rey Mysterio, versus Dean Malenko. Man, these two guys, they're like yin and yang with each other. Like the chemistry is just incredible. Like,
Mhm.
obviously, Dean's more grounded style and Ray's high flying style. But I feel like that just like it plays into both of their strengths when they're facing each other. So I really enjoy watching these two guys wrestle whenever they do. This might be my favorite version of their match that I've seen so far. I think they had a match, maybe Bash at the Beach or something like that. And then they had like at least one or two on Nitro. But this match
Yeah.
I thought was awesome. The counters, the callbacks to the previous matches. I would say match of the night for sure for me.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
what do you think about this one?
Completely agree with you. This is back when Bischoff had the formula down pat. It's like, okay, throw a couple of cruiserweights out there just to get the crowd jacked up for it. Then we'll throw a DDP match on afterwards because he just got that. He's just so good at getting the
Mhm.
crowd going. And then we'll work our way into the main events and stuff like that. But yeah, like I mean, first of all, can we talk about praise to the guy in the front row who had the airbrushed Papa Shango sweatshirt on? Did you notice that?
I did not notice that. No. What a
There's
choice.
three guys in the front row that are like, all jacked up and, you know, just into it. And I mean, aside the fact I know he's got a cell phone, so everybody's actually watching the matches, which is pretty cool. But at one point, one of the guys stands up and it's a completely airbrushed sweatshirt and it's got Papa Shango's head on it, which is just amazing to me. But yeah,
Man.
it's so funny. Like my wife was watching along with me for the first little bit, and I didn't think she'd last long, but she actually was kind of enjoying it because like the right away it's the Malenko Mysterio match, but she's looking at Malenko and she's like, is he a little person or something like that?
He is like almost like
Such a unique
proportional
body
wise.
type, right? It's such a unique body type, and then I was explaining it. She's like, he's not selling, is he? And I'm like, no, he's the Iceman, so that's his whole character. And then she
Mm,
understood that, and then she's watching Ray sell, and Ray do it. And Ray's like what 21 here or something like that. It's just
maybe, yeah, something
gross.
like that.
Yeah, it's just gross how good they are at this point. But match of the night easily, and could they even have a bad match together? Like it's just crazy.
Yeah, it can only be so bad between these two. And like I said, it kind of plays off their previous matches where he just keeps losing the Ray, so he's pissed off. So he goes for the clover leaf right away, but it gets countered. And then Ray, of course, utilizes all his high flying stuff. So we see a lot of springboards and planches to the outside. And then also, by the way, Dean comes out with one of Ray's masks
Yeah.
that he pulled off of him on a Saturday night a few weeks ago. And he's been carrying it around with him. And sticking it on the corner post like a tiki torch kind of deal.
Yeah.
But Ray eventually he grabs the mask and he like replaces his existing match with that mask, and
that was pretty cool.
yeah, so a good amount of storytelling in here outside of the work rate, but yeah, just the counters is like you weren't seeing anything like this anywhere at this point. Just the seamless, like Ray will be on Dean's shoulders and he'll flip him off and he'll land on his feet and then they'll like counter roll up pins, and I mean it's not really nonstop the whole way through because Dean does slow it down, but that kind of plays into his strength, so that all makes sense. It's really good near falls towards the end too, where Ray does a Rana into a really close pin, a near fall, and then he comes off the top rope, but Dean counters into a power bomb for a 2 count. Crowd is red hot for it at this point, and then the finish comes when Dean counters a. You got something to say, Dwayne? You got something to say? Ray runs up to the top rope to try to hit Dean with a Rana off the top, but Dean counters it because that's how he lost their previous match. And hits him with an avalanche doctor bomb off the top rope for the win and becomes the new cruiserweight champion. So the Iceman comes out the champion here. And like I said, I can't say enough good things about this one.
Oh, man. And that finisher was just devastating looking. I mean, everything Malenko did looked so stiff. And that's it was such a nice contradiction with Ray's style. And but yeah, and they told a story like he was grounding him the whole match and stretching him and just trying to make sure he didn't get any of his aerial stuff in him. And then Ray would have little spurts of offense, and the crowd would get up for it. And then they get shut down. Just everything was just a great start to the show.
Yeah, and like you said, you could tell the quality of a match. I mean, there's no better measurement than how into it the crowd is, and they were red hot towards the end of it. So awesome stuff, and it's only downhill from there. But it's actually, I mean, the show overall, I mean, it's not a bad show, but like nothing was stopping that.
Yeah.
Well, I say that, but we got Jeff Jarrett backstage next with Lee Marshall, which by the way, is Mean Gene not around at this point? Do you know?
I was thinking the same thing. Where's Mean Gene at? Because he was a fixture there, but I'm assuming maybe something was going on. Maybe he had a family
like
thing
surgery
or health or something. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Circumcision, something. I don't know. But we got Lee Marshall backstage, another mustached man with Jeff Jarrett, who just debuted in WCW a few weeks before this. We got babyface Double J here, and it's one of my favorite things that wrestlers do when they're nervous during a promo. They'll be like talking and listen here, so I'm gonna take ya, and then I'm gonna. If I had to take a drink every time he says "ha" during this one promo, you're gonna be hammered. So that was the only note I had on that segment. It was just hilarious.
I picked up the same thing, and I'm like, it was really obvious. I'm like, is he just trying to get over the whole Double J stuff where he do the J A thing, right? But I don't know. It was really painfully obvious that he was doing it. Quick Lee Marshall fact: you know who he was the voice of, right?
No, please tell me.
Famous cereal mascot.
Is he Tony the Tiger?
He is Tony the Tiger.
No shit. Wow, I did not know that.
Now, whenever you hear his voice, you'll automatically you realize,
I'm playing it in my head. Oh, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But after that, we follow that up with DDP, Diamond Dallas Page versus Eddie Guerrero, which on paper is just a very interesting matchup. Doesn't seem like a match that happened, but we're following up DDP beating Chavo Guerrero at Fall Brawl, the previous pay-per-view. And tell me what you know about this Battle Bowl ring.
So that came from, there was a tournament, I forget what year it's there. It was either 93 or 94 or something like that. And it was basically random tag teams got involved in these tag team matches, and the winners advanced to this final battle royal. And it was the Battle Bowl ring.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of similar to what AEW was doing with that ring for MJF or whatever. But and then DDP won it the first year, and he was down on his luck, and he finally had to turn around and all this. And then he had the story with Kimberly and the Booty Man and all that stuff, and then his year-long feud with Johnny B. Bad. And, it was a fixture with DDP for those first few years.
Yeah, it was very vague. The like, what does it mean if you have the ring? Because in
It
the
means
at least,
nothing. You just won that whole that thing. Yeah.
well, they were building it. What was it, Slamboree? I think it was where the Battle Bowl was at. It was like whoever wins this is going to get a title shot at the next pay per view. But then they just didn't follow up on that, and now there's like no like, oh, he might get a title shot at some point. But it's really they're just fighting over a ring because Eddie Guerrero beat DDP on TV at some point and took the ring from him. So now they're battling for the ring here again, I guess. But there's no reason to have it. I don't know. It's all very vague and stupid. But
Yep.
that being said, the match I thought was pretty solid. I thought I like how they just start off with just like trading slaps and then brawling to the outside. There's like a like a genuine animosity it felt like between these two, and both these guys are like just starting to hit their stride here. So I enjoyed this one for what it was worth, though. What do you think about it?
I did too. The only thing I didn't enjoy was Nick Patrick. We have way too much Nick Patrick in this foolishness with the evil referee and all that in this match.
I mean, you got to respect him fighting through the injury, though.
Oh yes,
you know?
yes, I do. Yeah. But yeah, I love this era of DDP. This is probably my favorite era is from 94 to 96 ish before he gets too big and that stuff. And I mean, something I just, noticing watching is, man, he could sell his ass off too. I mean, like for a big dude, I don't know, he's like 6'5" or something like that. He's also 38 years old at this point, I think, too. And he is bumping like crazy for Eddie. He was great getting heat with the fans. Of course, Eddie is like smooth as silk in that ring. It's just amazing how good he is. And it worked. They had I don't know if he had as good a chemistry as he did, ironically, with Johnny B. Bad, but he had some great chemistry with Eddie too. So, again, it was back-to-back matches where I'm sitting there going, I'm really enjoying this pay-per-view so far.
Yeah, no, I agree. And one question I had watching this is like, is Eddie like starting to turn heel here? Because there's one point where he just kicks DDP right in the dick, right in front of the ref, by the way, which is like, whatever. Everybody gets a mulligan, I guess. And then some like eye rakes too. I don't know if that was maybe just playing into how much he hated him or whatever. It's the intensity of the match, but
he's a heel by Halloween Havoc of next year for sure because he has that match with Ray. But I forget when he turned heel officially. But yeah, I don't think he was far off from this, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm waiting for that day. But yeah, outside of that, the finish was very interesting though, because I mean, it ramps up towards the end. There's like pinfall, there's roll up trading, there's 2 counts, but then so DDP wins, but he wins in it was like, so he hit the flapjack, which is kind of like a Styles Clash type of move, and then there's like a delay. He kind of walks around, picks up Eddie slowly, and hits him with a spinning power bomb.
Mm-hmm.
Then I think it pins him, maybe gets a 2 count, and then kind of walks around. Plays to the crowd, and then he like locks in Eddie's head to go for the diamond cutter. And I'm watching this, so I'm like, oh, Eddie's gonna counter because he's like building up to this way too much and way too slowly. But then he just hits the diamond cutter, and then that's it. Like it's very like anticlimactic finish here. But I mean, the diamond cutter is already taken off as a huge finisher at this point. So
they were the announcers were selling it like as the most devastating finisher. Honestly, it was probably the worst diamond cutter I've ever seen him put on. But I'm with you. It felt like there was something that was supposed to happen there, and it didn't. I don't know. Maybe Eddie got his bell rung or something, or somebody forgot their cue, or whatever happened. But yeah, it was really strange because the rest of the match was just like clockwork.
Yeah, but I mean, it was different, I guess. So I'll commend them for that. But
it was clean,
to your point,
I guess.
Yeah, for I guess DDP was more clean than Eddie was in this match, but
apparently.
But the real story here is that DDP finally gets that ring back, and can't stop him now, right? Got that jury, but we'll see what comes of that, if anything. Probably not. We got Mike today backstage with the Macho Man, and as a reminder, this show is presented to you by Slim Jims.
What?
Yeah, maybe this podcast. Maybe I'll reach out to Slim Jim and see if they can sponsor this episode. But so there was a sweepstakes to win a Slim Jim monster truck. Did you enter this sweepstakes?
I did not. I don't think I qualified here in Canada. unfortunately.
That sounds discriminatory.
We don't have we didn't have Slim Jims in Canada at this point. We had Schneider's Hot Rods, they were called.
I was gonna like make up a Canadian sounding name, but that is more Canadian than anything I could have made up. Schneider's Hot Rods, folks.
Yes, exactly. The Canadian version of Slim Jim.
How were they in comparison to Slim Jims?
I've never had a Slim Jim, to be quite honest. So for meat on a stick, it was pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, you're a Schneider's guy through and through. I like it.
Schneider.
Well, so Macho is here to pull the winner of the Slim Jim sweepstake. Did it have a name? Was it just Slim Jim sweeps? That's a hard thing to say. Slim Jim sweepstakes?
Yeah. By the way, this is my favorite part of the whole show by far.
Well, please take us through it, because there was a lot going on here. But,
well, one, Savage was just like coked up or something here.
What?
Two, the giant they didn't have a drum in order to do it. They just had this giant Slim Jim, which is just a hollow tube, basically painted like a Slim Jim, which was cracked in half that he pulled the top off of. So
had to really work to get that off, by the way.
I know. Mike today is just losing his mind here at Savage. Savage is just ad-libbing like crazy. The prize that they get is a Slim Jim's monster truck, by the way, because hey, who doesn't want a Slim Jim's monster truck? And then the best part of all is the winner is a person. What was her name? Joan Michalik or something like that.
Yeah,
who I guarantee you, Joan is probably 70 years old. winning from
Romulus, Michigan, which doesn't sound like a real place.
Winning the monster truck. So I'm just picturing Joan with that thing arriving on her front door. Yeah.
So
it was so good. So good.
So from my understanding, it's not like a literal monster truck. It's like just a big truck. But even still, it's like, I bet it's just gaudy. It probably has the Macho Man hat on it, like the monster truck in this show. So Joan Michalik wins this monster truck, and Macho's like, well, let me take you on a date and we can ride in the monster truck. Which begs the question, do you think that Randy Savage gave her the old meat stick in this monster truck?
He gave her the old how's she going, if you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. Gave her a good hot rod, maybe, perhaps.
He gave her the old Schneider.
They probably have Schneiders in Michigan. I bet you they do. That's close enough. Well, glad we got that covered. So Slim Jim's Halloween Havoc continues with old Double J, Jeff Jarrett, taking on the Giant, which kind of had me intrigued looking at this on paper, but I don't know, man. I mean, it was fun seeing, Giant throw Jarrett around, like Jarrett locks in a headlock and Giant just fucking shit cans him. His shot puts him like 100 yards. So that was pretty impressive. But otherwise, it was kind of just a classic Giant versus smaller guy type of match. But and also, by the way, just Ric Flair is a part of this. He's probably actually the most active of everybody involved here, because Flair was taken out by the Giant on Nitro. Flair, who by the way is the United States champion at this point, Giant and the NWO beat him down, took his title, so now Giant has possession of the US title. So I guess much like the Battle Bowl ring, I guess that makes him the champion because he has it. And by the way, Giant, I think last year Halloween Havoc, he took the world title without winning it. So it's just a theme with him. So that's a thing. Flair's aligning with Jarrett because Jarrett comes in. He's like, I'm sick of this NWO crap. Yeah, I respect the tradition of WCW. I forgot the haha. And he runs down all the names. Like, he likes the tradition of WCW and doesn't like the NWO. So that's why we have this match. But ultimately, I mean, it was whatever. It was a DQ finish. I don't know. What'd you make of this?
I just wrote down this was a bit of a cluster. This is to me where the show kind of started to slow down. This whole thing, it was Clash of Styles that didn't necessarily work. I respect the hell out of Jeff Jarrett now after his career, but at that time I could not stand Jeff Jarrett, and not in a good like, oh, he's a great heel type of way. It was more like, how people used to talk about X-Pac and stuff like that. It's just, he wasn't somebody that I enjoyed watching on my TV. And so seeing that, and I couldn't cheer for him, and I wouldn't necessarily want to cheer for the Giant either. Flair was just off the rails here. He just grabs the microphone halfway through the match. It makes no sense on it, bro. I don't know what that was supposed to do. Giant no sold it. Jarrett was confused by it.
Yeah.
And then the ending with the low blow and that. It was just uh, this was a cluster to me. Yeah.
Yeah, Flair was, to your point, he was on one. I mean, he started like in the aisleway and then it was like walking all the way around the ring. And then at one point, he like grabs a chair and brings it in the ring, but doesn't use it. He's just like teasing it. So it's almost like he's just trying to pop himself with this stuff. And he grabs the mic. I think Jarrett is in like a bear hug or some shit.
Yeah.
Flair grabs the mic and he's like, "Come on, Jarrett, get out of here." It's like for no reason. Like, you didn't need the mic. You can just yell. But yeah, like I said, Flair was really the focal point, it felt like. And they fight to the outside at some point. Giant has Jarrett goozled for a choke slam, but Flair comes behind with a low blow and obviously DQ finish, giving the Giant the win. And then the Horsemen come out to kind of, I don't know, run off the Giant. Giant runs away, but he gets the win. So NWO is this the first NWO match? I believe so, right?
It is, yeah.
So 1-0 so far. NWO is. But after that, we got all right. So Ted DiBiase, I kind of like how they did this. Ted DiBiase, who is a member of the NWO, obviously. He's kind of the stand-in announcer, backstage interviewer, but on the side of the NWO. And he's conducting interviews with all the NWO guys in the audience, in the stands. And he's conducting it. So there's always a lot of discussion about like who the best guy on the mic is in wrestling. But I don't think there's enough discussion on who's the worst guy on the mic in wrestling. I think old Sean Waltman is a pretty good contender. This one in particular wasn't terrible, but every time he's on the mic, I'm just waiting for it to unravel. But
yeah,
I don't know. Thoughts on 6 here?
I'm with you on that. Like, I honestly, again, another guy that I just wasn't a big fan of was Waltman at this point in the 6th character. Wasn't a big fan of that. I loved him as X-Pac when he was back in DX. 1-2-3 Kid always was a good story with him, but this version, I don't know, it just wasn't clicking for me. I know he was their buddy and stuff like that. And then, yeah, it was not good days on the mic. And depend on if he was clean or not, too. That was the other side of it, right? But
yeah. Do you remember his promo when he debuted on Nitro?
Yeah.
He was like in the front row. It was the first time I had seen it. And I saw it recently and it was like, yeah, to your point, how clean is he? Probably not that clean. But
yeah.
And that's how he was introduced to the audience, and he was kind of in that position, I felt like, from then on out. So, but he's here facing Chris Jericho, another guy who's recently debuted. So we got like 2 really talented guys in just like very weird iterations of their characters. So it's like the talent's there, but like character-wise, I don't think it really lined up. But the match was fine for what it was. I do think more of the story here. I think this match is almost more of a platform to get over Nick Patrick,
the
referee.
I mentioned that, yeah.
But I mean, the match itself was good. You got kind of got the classic stuff from both these guys. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was a solid match. Kind of a forgettable match. You could definitely feel like they have more in the tank here. But I don't know. What'd you think about this one?
Yeah, well, a couple of things that stood out for me. One, I love and my wife was still there and we were chatting about this too. So it's 96. So we're just at the point that we're getting out of the mullet years and we're graduating into the full grown long hair years. And you can see some guys about like Nash has got this beautiful flowing mane. Hall has still got a bit of the mullet going on, but Six was like literally right in between. He had the long hair in the back, and then he was grown out the front, but it was parted in the middle. He looked like Inigo Montoya from Princess Bride, so there's different people with different styles of hair at this point in time. But yeah, that was kind of funny. The other thing that stood out to me was, here we go. You got Jericho, who I don't know, legit probably is about 6 foot 220. Jacked at this point there. 6, although a leaner guy, was I think 6'1" in real life, and these two guys are considered cruiserweights at this point, right?
Yeah.
Compared to today's wrestlers, like they well, we see Jericho in AEW, like they're big guys compared to today's guys, and this is what it was like back then. These guys were cruiserweights, and they were flying around that ring pretty good. Definitely two different styles. I can give and take the amount of karate that we see with the six style stuff, right? Because it just I don't know something. I think he does know karate, but for some reason, all those movements he does look like somebody who doesn't know karate. Yeah, exactly.
It's like a guy who's pretending to know karate.
Yeah, it's like he's doing kung fu fighting dance or something like that. But yeah, and the other thing I wrote down, same as you, that you could tell we're getting over the fact that Nick Patrick is a dirty referee. And he's going to be a big factor in this show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and yeah, to your point, I mean, these guys are flying around the ring, a lot of kicks, but ultimately, so Jericho hits the lion salt onto 6, and then locks in a pin. But Nick Patrick makes a slow count and only gets to 1, which prompts a lot of boos from the crowd and commentaries going off like, oh, I think he's counting slow. And then they're like trying to compare, when Jericho pins and when 6 pins. And then 6 eventually hits a spinning kick, makes the pin, and Nick Patrick counts pretty fast. Not like egregiously fast, but definitely faster than
crazy fast. Yeah.
It's not like fast enough to be like, oh, he screwed him. But it's like, oh, maybe he got his, because I mean, I've talked about it before. Nick Patrick's pin cadence just drives me fucking crazy. The way it's almost like he's trying to keep the pin count a secret to the audience. Like he's like, sometimes he doesn't even touch the mat, it feels like. And he's just like wagging his wrist unnecessarily. Yeah. It just, I don't know. He's got heat with me on that front. But yeah. So long story short, Patrick screws out Jericho of the win, and Jericho chases him out. But we're only getting started with Nick Patrick and his shenanigans on this show.
And I can't remember if it was during this match or what match, but I'm always a sucker for some good Dusty Rhodes commentary, and especially when Bobby Heenan's there with him. But I forget which match it was, but he was going on about somebody's credentials, and he was just laying them out there, and then Heenan repeats them like basically verbatim. Dusty's like, I just said that. Weren't you here listening? And then Heenan's like, yeah, but I just said them in English. Like it just popped me when I heard that. Like just some of the things that like I miss about commentators having banter back and forth, right?
Dude, yeah, I mean, we could do a whole episode just on the commentary and things they said on this show. It was just even Tony, like his deadpan like reaction to Dusty and Heenan is like, it was like, I don't remember what match it was. I think it was DDP and Eddie, where DDP like throws Eddie in the air and Eddie does a nosedive into the mat. And then Tony's like, oh, he did a nosedive into the mat. And then Dusty's like, hey, nosedived. He nosedived into the mat. He says it like 4 times. And Tony's like, yep. All right. Say it again. Say it again, Dusty. One more time. All right. It's just like, it's kind of insane nowadays, too.
He described it as woolly bully was one of the terms that he came up with. He used that throughout the night. It's like,
yeah. Oh, man. And then he goes on to define what that means. And him and Tony have a thing. It's whatever they have to do to entertain themselves. That was probably during the
pretty much
Jarrett and Giant match. So
it probably was. Yeah, it might have been that. Yeah.
Well, we move on to Arn Anderson versus Lex Luger. So no NWO implications in this match, which kind of like got me wondering, like, do you think WCW is too heavy on the NWO at this point? Because it almost feels like if NWO isn't a factor, like it doesn't matter as much. And that's kind of what I got here. Like, even like the motivations behind this match are kind of convoluted. I don't know. What do you think? To me, it felt like there was not a lot of heat to this one.
I agree. Like they were balls deep into NWO at this point, right? Like they just, it felt like, yeah, I agree. Like if it wasn't NWO, it didn't matter, except for maybe that first match, like because it was just so good with Dean and Ray. But some of the main event guys just felt kind of, unless they're playing off an NWO guy, they're kind of lost and stuff. And honestly, I kind of get that because it seems like they were trying to go with that angle, like everybody should band together and fight off the NWO because they're trying to take over things. So why the heck are you feuding with each other at this point? It should just be guns ablazing at NWO. Aside from like say like the cruiserweight division, something like that, where they kind of their own identity and they weren't really messing around with that. If you were a main event person, it felt like you weren't important unless you were feuding with the NWO. So this match kind of lost some steam as far as Lex and Arn, although two guys that I really like and enjoy seeing, but even just the match didn't feel like it had any consequence to it. It was that was the problem. I mean, can we talk about right off the get go though, Lex's hair during this promo they did for it?
Describe his hair.
I would describe it as burnt cotton candy is what I would that went through a wind tunnel.
Did he just like cut it and like not straighten it? Is that the deal? Like what?
I don't know.
Because I think at this point he had like the ponytail going.
Yeah.
But he kind of just let it roam free here. And it was just it's like his hair was blowing in the wind, but there was no wind. So
there was no answer, my friends, either. It was like one peroxide bottle too many, and the hair was done. But it's Lex, whatever. We'll
I mean, he was glistening. I will never hate that. I'll never get a thumbs down from me. No, I was a big fan of the moisture in this match, if nothing else. But yeah, it was. It wasn't a bad match. Mechanically, it was good. Always love watching Arn in there. Lex is good. But yeah, to your point, it's just like not a lot of stakes here, and like I don't know, the motivation behind this match is kind of NWO related, but it's like just another layer removed from it. Like I believe because at Fall Brawl, the Horsemen came together with Sting and Lex, and then Sting turned his back and walked out, and now Arn's blaming Lex, something along those lines. That's kind of why this match is happening, but it's kind of like a weak premise to a feud. You got the Horsemen and the Dungeon of Doom's here too, and just a lot of miscellaneous factions running around that all seem like second fiddle to the NWO. So, I mean, the finish was interesting because you have a ref bump, of course, and then chairs come into play. Arn grabs a chair, swings it at Lex, but hits the Slim Jim post. And Lex grabs the chair, hits Arn in the back with it, throws him in the ring, and then locks in the torture rack. Arn submits, but Luger won't let go. So he just keeps racking him, keeps on racking him. And then eventually I think the Horsemen come out to make him stop. And then Arn's carried out on a stretcher. So Lex looks like a monster here. Mm-hmm. If nothing else, so coming out of it, it's boosting his stock. But overall, I could take or leave this match.
Yeah, and I'm with you. Like I love Arn Anderson, absolutely love him. Any chance getting to watch him wrestle is a delight. And seeing him put the spine buster on Lex, it was just a thing of beauty. I always love the way he sells the attempted DDT, and the guy holds the rope, and Arn just takes a huge bump for something like that. Weird how they went with like Lex almost being heelish here, but technically he's not a heel, that kind of thing. I don't know, like Lex, like I just said, Lex 96, 97 is a great job as far as getting Lex over. A big part of it was how, the whole him winning the title and stuff like that. But I feel like the 95 portion of this, I think they missed a little opportunity of having Lex come back and go back into the Horsemen at that point where they had that history. And then you could play off of that, but whatever. I mean, it is what it is. But it was just it felt like no stakes in this match. And if there's no stakes, what are we watching, right?
No stakes, no meat, no sizzle. That's what they say, right? I don't know what that means. But Lee Marshall's backstage. A lot of stakes to this boy with the Harlem Heat and Colonel Parker and Sister Sherry. All backstage. I only noted this because did it feel like everybody was like so close together here? Like they were all like circling Lee Marshall. Like I need to add like a picture of it here because it was just like you need to put a Brazzers logo at the bottom of this because they were just so close to him. Like Booker's lips were like in his ear for no reason. It made me very uncomfortable.
Well, we didn't have HD at that point, so they didn't have more room on the picture, right? So they really they got squeezed into this box, and I mean. Booker and Steve Ray, pretty big guys. I mean, but I was saddened because I didn't get to see much of Sherry. I mean, like she was blocked out all the time by
Yeah.
Booker, or it was Colonel Parker or whatever. But yeah, that was a loss on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Shame. Well, we get more of them later when they defend their tag team titles. But on the way there, we got another tag team match. We got the Horsemen, represented by Chris Benoit and Steve Mongo McMichael, of course, accompanied by Deborah and Woman, taking on the Faces of Fear, the team of Ming and the Barbarian with Jimmy Hart. So again, we got Horsemen versus Dungeon of Doom here. So two other factions facing off against each other. I think really the source of this is Benoit and Sullivan have beef, which
Yeah,
remind me,
yeah.
where in the timeline are we with old Nancy and her rendezvous? Do you remember?
I believe we are right in the timeline of the affairs are starting at this point, and that's why we're playing into this whole angle here. Yeah.
Is that like what's supposed to be the reason they don't like each other?
So they decided to professionally work with what they had. It's kind of similar to the Matt
Mhm.
Hardy Edge thing, that type of thing, right? But yeah, I think the difference was I think Sullivan and Nancy were on the outs for a little while, anyways. In that case,
Mm.
versus like Matt and Lita were quite fresh, and all of a sudden Edge is doing what he's doing. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was yeah, I was talking about this with my wife actually, and I said, like, they settled this one in the ring. Let's put it this way: they agreed to be stiff with each other, but not kill each other, or put either of them out of the business at this point. But well, I'll let you get to what happens in the match. This is where I felt the show started to pick up again a little bit because of this match, and then just anything with Benoit. And I'm not one of those people that's like, oh God, I can't watch Benoit. I'm sorry, like he was
Mhm.
one of my favorite wrestlers at the time, and watching him work is just like probably WCW Benoit is my favorite version of Benoit because he's just like a buzzsaw that whole time, right? Just
Yeah.
so vicious, and work with the Horsemen, it worked and all that stuff. And his thing with Nancy too, that worked really well. So yeah, and the Faces of Fear, it's just a joke. Like these guys should be just eating everybody alive, right?
I
But
love the Faces of Fear, dude. I mean, it's
yes,
just two big Tongan. Are they both Tongan? No, Meng's Tongan. What is Barbarian? Is he just tan?
he is Tongan as well. Yeah,
Is he Tongan? Okay, yeah,
yeah.
two big Tongans just throwing each other, throwing people around. It's really all I need
By
from
the way,
wrestling.
is it me, or was this probably maybe Steve McMichael's best match because it was the best use because he was allowed to just be very physical with these two guys?
The chop blocks, big
Yeah.
fan. Playing to
Yep.
his football background, which is
Yep.
makes sense. I'm surprised we don't see that more often, like from football players. But yeah, really. By the way, the random sumo battle between Mongo and Ming towards the beginning had me. Is Haku a sumo guy, like a former sumo guy? Do you know?
He did do a little bit of sumo in Japan. Yeah.
Well, he looked like it. God damn, those hands. It's
Yeah.
intense.
They were fast. Yeah.
Yeah, he beat Mongo in that department. But and then
That
Ming and
collision that collision they had mid-ring, early in the match where they did the 2 shoulder blocks and then McMichael jumped in the air and hit him, like, that
hmm,
was some physicality there. That was pretty good.
this was just a lot of meat slapping in
Yes.
this match, which that's all it needed to be. I mean, anytime Ming and Benoit had interactions, chopping each other, just whew, it was just good stuff. And then Faces of Fear, their double team stuff, like the double headbutts from opposite corners, the almost like a power and glory type of move.
Yep.
Um, I think Ming does like a backdrop. Ming backdrops Benoit, and then Barbarian catches him into a power bomb, which is just crazy looking,
Yep.
crazy. But all of that has nothing in comparison to the Halliburton that Mongo is carrying around with him. What's in it? Who knows? But this big metal briefcase to the head of Ming from Mongo, and then Benoit follows it up with a flying headbutt, gets the win. So the Horsemen come out the winners here, and a little post-match shenanigans here to say the least. But match itself, I thought was solid.
I thought the match was solid, and I thought the beatdown afterwards was pretty solid too, to be quite honest. Like, it felt I don't know why it just felt like, man, these guys seem pretty vicious, and I kind of feel like this could go off the rails, or I don't know. They felt kind of real because I think too. I had in my head. I also know what's going on with Sullivan and Benoit
Right.
and Nancy. And is he going to get it like a little stiff shot in on Benoit at this point, and just
Mhm.
him, talking to Nancy and talking about how he's the man still, and Benoit's not the man, and all that. Like, just
He's undoing his shirt. He's like, "Yeah,
yeah,
what do you think
yeah.
about this?"
Yeah,
It's like, look
just
at
all
Benoit, I
that
feel like.
stuff, and correct me if I'm wrong, 'cause I'm trying to remember back, is this is very, very early stage of Gangster Conan too, right?
Yeah, we're like a month or 2 into it. So,
Yeah, okay. Mhm.
a lot of volatile, characters because obviously you got the
Yeah,
Benoit Sullivan heat, but then you got these Faces of Fear guys involved, and then you
that'll
got
kill you.
Conan who's unhinged,
Yeah,
and then who else is there? I mean, I think that's pretty much it, right? Who else is in the dungeon at this point? Jimmy Hart's there,
yeah.
sure.
I think this is when they kind of fleshed out some of the other guys like Tenta and stuff like that, so this felt a bit more
Yeah,
vicious, and even Nancy did a great job of selling things, like, with just begging Jimmy to get him to stop and stuff, like, even that stuff, so I
mhm,
for a beatdown, like, they didn't have to do much, but it just had that feel of realism. I enjoyed, like, this was a good pick me up, like, as far as, like, the action and if we got away from the silliness, that type of thing.
right. Yeah, and the realism for me, because they obviously the dungeon they beat down the horsemen because it's like 7 against 2 or whatever.
Yep.
Mongo's laid out, and then Benoit is like still on his feet. And I'm watching
Yes.
this. I'm like, is Benoit gonna like sell for anybody? Because he's
I
just like
know.
chopping the shit. I'm like, is he just gonna take out the entire Dungeon of Doom? But
Yeah.
eventually, numbers kind of pile up on him and they lay him out. So Dungeon looking strong here, which that's a good point. They're kind of getting away from the circus act kind of
Yeah.
thing with all the face
Yeah.
paint and the goofy monstery type stuff and more of
Yeah,
a
because they had the
realism.
shark and they had Kamala and the leprechaun and all this stuff, and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, this felt like a bit more cohesive crew 'cause, I don't know if this is before or after Hugh Morris and stuff like that either. I think this is
Yeah, Hugh
after Hugh
Morris is in the
Morris.
picture at this
Oh, is
point,
he? Okay.
yeah.
There's your
He
other
might have
guy.
been out there too. I don't know if he was on this show or not,
I
but
can't remember, yeah. Mhm.
um but yeah, so Dungeon looking strong. I don't know, I'm slowly becoming a Dungeon of Doom fan. I hate to say it, but
If you suffered through 95, you deserve to see some good Dungeon because 95
the,
Dungeon was horrible. Holy
what
crap.
was Beefcake? Zodiac. Yeah, with
Zodiac,
the
yeah.
stupid horn on his it was
Mhm.
rough times. Rough
Yep.
times. Well, we got the tag team titles on the line next. The Harlem Heat, Booker T and Stevie Ray defending against the Outsiders, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall. So at this point, the NWO are 2-0 on the night, and trying to make it 3-0 here, and also taking the titles. Actually really enjoyed this match a lot more than I thought I would.
Mhm.
I think we're still in this period where Nash and Hall are still pretty good workers at this point. I mean, Diesel and Razor Ramon were doing really good stuff at the end of their WWF runs,
Yep.
and we're still not too far from that. So there was some good work in this match. They were like Harlem Heat got a lot of offense in this match, which is
Yep.
like at this point the NWO was kind of bulletproof. So it was interesting seeing them just like getting thrown around. Like I think at one point Stevie Ray just like tosses like gorilla presses Scott Hall into Kevin Nash, and they both go down. So no, I actually this is probably one of the top matches of the night for me overall. Even it's kind of a weird finish, but I enjoyed it. What about you?
Yep. I'm with you. Same thing. These two teams meshed well is what I'll say.
Yeah.
I felt like Hall and Nash both had their working boots on for this
Mm,
match. Probably more so Hall because Nash just had to come in and just be the big guy. But even when Nash was doing his stuff, it was stiff. It looked good and he had an aura to him. The fans were like so behind these guys, which
mhm,
but almost it was weird. Like they were really behind them, but also they wanted to be behind Harlem Heat because they just garner some respect too, because they're just two badass dudes, like they're
mhm.
just so good. And I mean, it's funny just saying like I don't look retroactively at Benoit and just I can't watch him. But when I watch Scott Hall, I think, man, one, that guy was so cool. It was beyond belief and so good at what he did. And I've said this on other podcasts too. Like I've never seen a guy that is so big that's able to, when he needs to, make himself look small but not weak. You know what I mean? Like he could sell, like his selling for a big man was out of this world. Like I wish he was around today. Like say like if AEW hired him or something and took guys like Wardlow and stuff like that and said, okay, go talk to Scott about how you should sell as a guy of your size, because he doesn't all of a sudden just become meek and mild. He just sells in a way that a big man should sell. And,
Right.
but doesn't lose his aura or his presence. And it's just, this was probably peak of the Outsiders being, I don't know, I can't say they were clean at this point, but they were not getting themselves messed up for the matches at this point is what I'll say. Like they were still, I think they were both in the mindset, like, we're going to make a whole lot of money with this. So let's just do what we got to do for it. Yeah.
And this is really like their first, because on the Nitros, they don't really have like matches. You know, they have beatdowns and schmozzy kind of stuff. So it's like, okay, this is our opportunity to really like have a good match here. And then I'm sure they respected the Harlem Heat. So
yeah,
they meshed really well to your point. And I mean, Scott Hall, I mean, he has like some of the best punches in wrestling.
They're beautiful.
So good.
Beautiful.
So loud. They look good. And Nash's like knees in the corner and his elbows, they just have an intensity to them. I mean, it's really
Booker always looks like he's going to take your head off with that that, what do you call it? Like it's a reverse kick or whatever, like that spinning heel kick or whatever. It's just, and his Harlem Hangover is just ridiculous. How deadly that looks, man. Like it's just,
he hits it in this match, and it was like on the replay. You can see how Hall's head just got crushed or got close to getting crushed. It was beautiful and brutal. It's just pretty much Booker T's MO here. And there's a fun spot in this match where Scott Hall spits in the face of Stevie Ray, and Stevie's like staring at him coldly. And then Hall tags in Nash, and then Nash eventually gets knocked down by Stevie. And then Stevie turns the Hall and spits in his face. So there's an element of like, this is just genuine, like palpable animosity between these two, which is awesome.
Pretty sure this is the match we get the Spooky Fingers meme from too for Scott Hall.
Yes, I noticed that. Everybody knows. Also, by the way, apparently Colonel Parker is a cuck, which I wasn't familiar with until this match. So obviously Sherry and Parker out there with Harlem Heat. At some point, Sherry just slaps the shit out of Scott Hall. And then Hall, because it's the 90s, you react to this by grabbing her by the hair and kissing her against her will. And then Parker just sits there and does nothing. He has a cane in his hand. He could have, hey, come on. Enough of the malarkey. But he's like, well, I guess you go to get kissed. Or whatever. So that happens, and then Harlem Hangover is hit by Booker T onto Scott Hall, but then if a ref, I don't know, he's sleeping somewhere, and then Parker gets in the ring with his cane, but then Nash takes the cane away from Parker and then hits, I think it's Stevie Ray with it, breaks the cane, Hall pins him, new tag team champions, the Outsiders. So I think it was inevitable at this point. Seems like we're building the story of them taking over, and a lot, that's based on them taking the titles, and it's another piece to the puzzle here. But new champs here, and overall just a pretty entertaining little match here.
Yeah, my only complaint about the match would probably be that ending, only because it took too long to do the whole grabbing the cane thing, hitting. I think it was Stevie Ray. And it's like Booker was with the referee, like getting put out of the ring for like ever. I mean, it's that was the only thing that I would say. Other than that, everything else was great in this one.
Yeah, there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen, two managers, you got a referee's in the corner, he's dead, but he's alive again. The cane didn't break on the first shot, so you had to hit him a few times. It was a little clunky, but it is what it is.
But then Hall sells it perfectly. He sells it like he's dead from that Harlem Hangover, which he might have been actually, because it was pretty nasty looking.
It was pretty stiff. Yeah, it took a little bit to cover him. He had to like muster up just getting the one arm over, which is the little things. Scott Hall's so good, man.
Yeah.
Well, you want to talk clunky? It's time for our main event, folks. We got the NWO World Title on the line we got Hollywood Hogan taking on Macho Man Randy Savage. We are a long ways away from the mega powers exploding, is what I was thinking watching this. It just feels like a completely different. I don't even know where to begin. I mean, Hogan looks like a fucking dildo here. First of all, I mean, what are we? What are we? Is this the hair that he had in one of his stupid movies?
Yeah, I first thing I wrote was, "Oh my fucking god!" I forgot Hogan had a rug on for this match, which was. Oh, yeah, I think he wore it for either the Three Ninjas movie or whatever, Santa with Muscles.
Santa with Muscles?
Yeah, yeah. And I mean,
have you seen any of those?
No, No Holds
Nobody
Barred is my
has.
only venture into Hogan's acting ability. But the other thing was Hogan was like so slimmed down at this point because he had been doing the acting and stuff like that, and it just seemed weird. But yeah, that rug, oh my good god.
Yeah, because my wife was sitting next to me watching this, and she looks up and she's like, "Who's that?" And I'm like, "It's Hulk Hogan." And then she just like, she couldn't even like put that together. Like, what? Because he had the stupid glasses, like he was like the fourth member of Too Cool, and then he had the rug. It was like Sting hair, kinda. And then
Can we talk about the fact he wears a rug, but of all the rugs he could wear, he wears one that still gives him a receding hairline.
Yeah, it was,
he had a 5 head with this, right?
And it's like the headband he was wearing was a little too low.
Yes,
the spray painted black beard. He was so skinny, like you said.
The mustache wasn't grown in. The mustache wasn't fully grown in either because it had been shaved by Kevin Sullivan. So yeah.
It just didn't look like Hogan at all until eventually got ripped off. But
it looked like Dallas Buyers Club Hogan.
Yeah. HIV Hogan in the house. Yeah, so, and that's not even. So Hogan's here. He cuts a promo and the crowd eventually comes to the ring. And by the way, Michael Buffer, stupid Michael Buffer, starts introducing Hogan before Macho Man comes out, which it's all disconjointed. And then Macho Man starts coming out. They like play his music and they stop this music to introduce Hogan and they play it again. And then Macho Man comes out and then he goes to the side of the stage to beckon out a monster truck, but it takes 18 years for this monster truck to come out. I don't know if it's stalled or what the hell, but it comes Tokyo drifting out there. The Macho Man monster truck with the hat and the Slim Jim logo. Commentary is like, is this what the fan won? I was just like, I hope not. What a pain in the ass that would be to have that in your driveway. Have to have a driveway to fit that thing. Have to get the gas. It's the whole thing. Poor Joan.
Old 70-year-old Joan trying to climb up onto the wheel to get into this.
Just kidding. Cornhole by Macho Man.
Yeah. Thanks for hating on Michael Buffer because if there's somebody I want to reach through my TV and grab and choke, it's Michael Buffer. Oh,
it's just his long-winded introductions just drive me crazy.
And how much money did they spend on that guy too, which is really scary.
I mean, they probably have to pay a couple mil just for him to say "Ready to Rumble." So
yeah.
Out coming with the orange tights with the silver trim. He filed his taxes jointly. Just unnecessary like details about each guy, and I don't know. Doesn't add anything to it. But then you got that. You got stupid Hogan with his. Even Hogan's. The match eventually starts, and then Hogan's like running around the ring. I will say though, he is playing a good heel here, which is
he is chicken shit heel. Yeah.
It reminds me of when Stone Cold turned heel, WrestleMania 17, and then he had to transition from this badass world beater into like a cowardly heel, like, oh no, like begging off in the corner. It's like, it's kind of in the same vein where it's like it's like so opposite of what he used to be, but I thought he played it off well. I mean, you know, begging off, like getting on his knees, like, oh, please don't kind of stuff. So, but yeah, the match is what it is. I mean, Macho Man takes off the wig and glasses at some point and puts it on, which is a hilarious visual.
It actually looked better on Macho Man.
Yeah, it made more sense on him for sure. Exposing Hogan's dumb ponytail that he had to tie up to fit in this wig. It's just chairs get involved.
We got to see Hogan's ass.
What do you think about his ass? How do you rate it out of 10?
I don't know. Hogan was what? How old at this point? He was born
probably younger than you think.
He was born in 53, so he would have been 43 at this point.
First of all, I don't know why you just know his birthday offhand.
Well, I mean, I just literally did a video on Hulk Hogan on my channel not that long ago. So yeah. Yeah, so 43-year-old ass. I mean, he was in good I'll say this. He was down probably 30 pounds from his usual weight that he is wrestling at, but he was ripped though. I'll say that. Like when Macho pulled the tights down, you could see Hogan's abs. I mean, he was rocking some abs there, so he was in good shape. But I mean, one thing, he's not afraid to tan, and obviously he tans everywhere. So good on him. Good on him.
Almost everywhere. Not quite his ass. I think he might have missed a couple cheeks.
Well, he got the cheeks. He just had the thong print there. Was the problem, right? Yeah,
so see, I knew I should have recorded this so we could do the old Telestrator deal on his ass. But
you need the Pat McAfee Telestrator. But
maybe.
He got some screeches from the girl. So there you go. So good on Hogan.
Not bad. I don't like a muscular ass. Like John Cena's ass. He was in what was it? The Amy Schumer movie.
Mm-hmm.
But he saw his ass, and it's just like a square.
Yeah, that's wrong. Yeah,
too much ass. But regardless of that, that's not even the beginning of the shenanigans here. Because
no, I wish we could stick to Hogan's ass, to be quite honest, but we can't.
So feel free to I tried to take notes on this. There was just so much happening towards the end. So
literally, my note says so much bullshit in this main event. That's literally my note. Yeah.
So Ted DiBiase's ringside with Hogan. He hands Hogan some sort of object, which is it like a pipe? Did you get the commentary was just like, oh, he has some sort of object.
I thought it was a rolled up piece of paper myself, but
it's always so cartoony. Like even brass knuckles are always like these big white things. So you can, I don't know. I guess in my head, it's like a small pipe. And Hogan takes the pipe. Pause. Hogan takes the pipe. And Liz, by the way, Miss Elizabeth is out there. And that's a whole other element to this thing. Because Liz had been with the Horsemen. And the Horsemen and Macho Man had been at odds. And Liz had been using all the alimony money from Macho Man to pay for whatever the fuck. And
new boobs, apparently.
Oh, were there new boobs? I didn't really notice.
Kind of looked like it. That's my wife actually mentioned that. She's like, "Did she get a boob job?" So
again,
and the women know, right? So
I'll have to add the visual here so we can compare. But so Liz and Macho had obviously been at odds, but Liz has seen Macho get beat down by the NWO, and she's like, "Well, I still have feelings for you," and there's a whole dramatic build up, and the Nitro's leading up to this. Like Macho doesn't know if he can trust her. He catches Liz in the hotel room of the NWO, but Liz is trying to it's not what it seems. It's a whole thing. But Liz is out here, and she takes the pipe away from Hogan, and then Hogan eventually lays out the referee. Then Macho Man hits the elbow from the top, makes the pin count. 1, 2. Nick Patrick, by the way, is in as the new referee. 1, 2. Oh, my neck. Oh, I can't make that last count. So Nick Patrick again, screwing the pooch here, so to speak. And then Macho Man eventually grabs this object from Hogan, hits him with it. But then Ted DiBiase gets involved, and the Giant's back out here. And then the Giant choke slams Macho on the floor, rolls him in. Hogan covers him. And then Nick Patrick, as now his neck is healed. So now he can count to 3. And so Hogan retains the title. And just a very cluster ending stretch here. And I don't always hate these type of finishes, but just the way, I don't know, it didn't really move me how this one played out.
Too much. There was just too much. In there. It was just a cluster. That choke slam might have been the gentlest choke slam I've ever seen in my entire life, considering it was on a padded floor as well.
Well, so it made me laugh because Giant grabs Macho Man on the side where the stage is of the ring, I don't think there was padding on that side of the floor. So you see Giant look down, see that there's no padding. So he like throws Macho Man into the barricade to like shift him to another side of the ring and then choke slams him on the pad. So yeah,
lays him down gently there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, it was just too much. Ridiculous. I mean, I'm a big Macho Man Hogan fan, but it was, they didn't need all this. They could have had a fine match with just maybe DiBiase interfering, distract the referee, and away you go, right?
Yeah. Too many hats on hats. You could have just had one hat, one wig. But
I will say this. If I could trade it for not having what happened next, I would take even more interference.
well, after the match, Hogan starts cutting a promo. Who cares what he's saying? And the bagpipes start to play, folks. And no. It's not Drew McIntyre. It's Rowdy Roddy Piper comes out, debuting in WCW, comes out to the ring, he doesn't grab a mic. He has a mic in his jacket. And then begins to say things. He says, I don't even know. He's just rambling. Says that he's the one guy that Hogan can't beat, which, is that true? Did he not beat him at the first WrestleMania?
No. Well, he won the tag team match, but he didn't pin Piper, right? It was Orton who got pinned. Yeah.
That's right. So I guess there's a source to this, but I don't know. Hogan's like just exaggerated and cartoony, like, oh my god, he's like hiding behind Giant. It's like, dude, I think you can handle Piper here, but
I think so.
Just a train wreck of a promo. I can't even tell you what they talked about.
Well, okay, well, here's the thing too, like I am a Piper fan and I'm for my channel currently watching early 80s Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling when you have Roddy Piper at his peak before he even goes to the WWF, and just solid gold on the microphone for this stuff. But this promo was just all over the place. Even Hogan was looking at him going, all right, Piper, let's just wrap it up. He tried to cut him off a couple times just to move things along, and Piper's like, no, let me speak and all this, and it just meandered and went nowhere. And basically, even Hogan, I don't even know if that was scripted, that Hogan was supposed to say, you're just as good as me. But I think Hogan's like, all right, we got to just get this show off the air. So I'm just going to say this, just so bad. Except the only good thing was the line Hogan laid on him was when he was getting out of the ring, when he told him that when he goes to the washroom, he should squat or
whatever. Both guys were trying to cut each other off. They weren't working together on this thing. It didn't seem like there was a plan. But I guess we're building to a match between these two guys, which I'm sure will be great. I'm sure it's going to be 5 stars.
Yes, I remember this one clearly, and you're going to love it.
I can't wait. I can't wait. Is that the one where Macho Man jumps off the cage?
This is the main event of Starrcade, is what this is going to be, and a 9 title match too. So,
of course it is. Why wouldn't it be?
Because Piper will not lay down for Hogan. So.
What a good recipe.
Mm-hmm. It's not the Butcher, at least in the main event of Starrcade,
Yeah, Brother Brood I don't know which one I'd prefer, but or the Disciple or whatever the fuck he is at this point.
Yeah.
So, well, the show ends mid promo. Tony's like, all right, sorry folks, we got to wrap it up, but I don't think anybody really cared. So, like you said, it was going nowhere, and really made you want to turn into Nitro the next night, I guess, right?
I wonder how much longer the promo went on after they cut them off.
I think it might still be going on, to be honest. I gotta say it might still be going on, but that was that's some Havoc for you. Halloween Havoc 96. If you had to throw a grade at this from A to F, what do you think you would throw at it?
I'm gonna be generous and give it a C+. Middle of the road, but there was enough high quality stuff on there. Like, I'm just looking back at it, like Malenko Mysterio was great. DDP and Guerrero was great. Giant Jeff Jarrett wasn't so much. Six and Jericho was not too bad. Luger and Anderson, 2 stars, just didn't have a lot of heat to it.
Mhm.
The 2 tag team matches were fantastic. The Hogan Savage match, if it didn't have so much fuckery in it, it would have been much better, but it wasn't. And then the whole Piper thing just kind of ruined it. So
Yeah.
honestly, it was like I say, it was like a roller coaster. It was great, then you went down, and then you went back up, and then you got to this part, and that was so I'll say C plus in my books.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing. I think that Piper promo took it down a half a letter grade for me, but
Yeah,
um yeah, I agree. There's not like any like terrible matches on this card. It does feel like it's NWO is like the only story going on, which it is a good story, but there's just like a lack of depth, I would say, on this. But you have the cruiserweight match here in the beginning, so there's some good stuff on this. I mean, it's you compare this to like the prior year's Halloween Havoc. I mean, it's night and day. So, but it's a lot to wrestle with. But speaking about wrestling with, where can everybody find you, listen to you, and taste your delicious voice?
well, I honestly I've been pretty naughty because I haven't been putting too much stuff out lately. I don't know. I think I've gone into depression because I went back onto Twitter, and that was probably my biggest mistake I could
Ah,
possibly do.
that'll do it.
Holy God, that place is just a minefield of mental health issues. Like, it's just unbelievable. I appreciate like you being on there because you're the one guy that I see calling this stuff out and actually making some comedy out of it. So it's good. But
Appreciate it.
oh my God, like I swear to God that started to depress me, all the stuff that's on there. But yeah, if people wanna find me, it's mostly on YouTube. It's Wrestling with the 80s on YouTube is the main stuff that I'm doing. Obviously, I'm a old guy. I like 80s wrestling. I really enjoy it. And just concentrating on that era of wrestling. I'm about to embark. I think what the next thing will be is in my watching, I've been going back like the early years and finished 82 and 83. Now I'm going to start with
Mm.
84. So I think I'm doing that's when the golden era of wrestling really starts. So I'm going to just do a little almost like as if somebody was watching it in real time, and just kind of do a
Mhm.
podcast like that. I do have Wrestling with the Truth as well. It's the audio podcast. It's on and off. If I get inspired enough to rant about modern wrestling, I will, and I'll
Hell
go
yeah.
off on that a little bit. But it's I can't guarantee it's going to be a every week type of thing, but every once in a while, or just go to the back catalog. There's some good stuff there, and just enjoy the rants. But I might get back into that a little bit too because I think I'm starting to clear the haze of the depression of Twitter, because I'm sick and tired of seeing people quote unquote getting canceled and all this stuff. Then they're getting
Mm.
canceled by people who completely contradict themselves and stuff like that. I've started using the block button a lot more, not just for people who
Ooh.
say anything to me. It's more so if I see something stupid, you're blocked. I don't care. You're just blocked. It's just I don't need that in my life, and that's starting to make it a bit more clean now.
Yeah, it's a minefield is an understatement. I mean, I'm trying to mute and block people too, but I
Yeah.
mean these diva stands just it feels like they're coming
Oh,
out the woodwork.
oh my god, like, it's beyond. I don't understand how, like, they're obviously like I said it today on somebody else's, made a comment on their YouTube, and I'm like, it's either these people don't exist, or they're intentionally doing this just to try to get people riled up, or they
Mhm.
literally are mentally deranged and they want to see wrestling just go away or something like that. But there's no rhyme or reason for what's going on. Like, it's just crazy. But
Mm.
I don't know. If you want to interact with me, you're probably better off going to Instagram and find me there. It's either at Wrestling with the 80s or at Wrestling with the Truth. That I find people are a bit more
Yeah.
bit more normal there, but yeah, Twitter is just a
Are you on
minefield.
Threads?
No, I'm not.
I've been thinking about shifting to Threads. Maybe that's better. I know it's like Instagram. It's like their Twitter. Maybe Threads. Maybe we kick up MySpace again. Get that going.
That's what I want.
Give
MySpace
it a
would be
second
good, yeah.
try, but then you have the top 8 again, then that causes a whole other debacle. Can't
Yeah,
escape the drama, man.
I don't know. It's just crazy. Like I don't know about you, but I can't even give like an honest opinion on stuff. Like even with groups of friends, like if I say something like literally asking a question about AEW where I go, like, this didn't really make sense to me. Like, can you explain this? It's like it's causing a kerfuffle. Like, okay, guys, it's effing wrestling. We just sat through a 20-minute Roddy Piper promo that went nowhere, and we watched the Giant, against Jeff Jarrett. Like, I think you can withstand us saying, well, maybe Will Ospreay shouldn't have got 7 stars in that match,
I
Yeah.
think most people's anger would get neutered if they just watch some WCW. Watch some Dungeon of Doom. It'll cool you down a little bit.
You watch 95 WCW and you will never ever complain about anything ever again.
Watch a Renegade match and
yeah. Renegade match, the whole Hogan versus Dungeon of Doom, what the stuff they did to Flair and stuff like that. Yeah, like just that's fine. You'll go, you know what? I appreciate what we have today.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Jim Duggan?
Okay, here's something for you. No, I'm literally like say watching early 80s Mid-South and that stuff. If you want to appreciate Jim Duggan, go watch that. He honestly was fantastic in Mid-South in 82, 83, 84, that stuff. He should have been huge. And I think he really was going to be huge in WWF, but then he got caught with the Iron Sheik and doing the, not only, getting caught in kayfabe, but then also there was a drug bust and that screwed everything over for him. But yeah, WCW Jim Duggan it was a clown show. But if you watch, I tell anybody, watch Mid-South 82, 83. You want to see a guy that's over. Like Jim Duggan was over. He was a badass. He looked huge, like against these people. He was tough. His promos were good. All that stuff. Yeah, it's good stuff.
I'm making it my mission to try to become a fan of him, but all I've seen is the taped fist and the stupid tongue and his stupid board and his. But well, maybe next time we'll get up here and do a Jim Duggan retrospective.
I mean, you can even see it if you look at like 87, 88 WWF. You could tell like they were actually trying to do something with him, and then boom, he got that drug bust, and that was it. But yeah, and then he became just the clown prince of wrestling with the tongue and the board and the hose and the USA and all this stuff. And then I think he was just collecting a paycheck in WCW, and God bless him. You might as well get it, right? But if you want to cleanse your palate of Jim Duggan, watch Mid-South on Peacock and watch him and DiBiase together. Fantastic stuff.
Jim Duggan has hose, huh? That's all I heard out of that.
He does, yeah.
Well, can you blame him?
And he's got a board. He's got a stiff board too. So.
Once again, thank you to BC for joining me on this lovely, lovely episode. Go give him a follow. Wrestling with the 80s, Wrestling with the Truth, YouTube, audio, taste. He has a taste podcast where you just put them in your mouth. I don't fucking know. Go do all that stuff. Hey! Let's hit that jangle, baby. Okie dokie artichoke. Let's get into this bad boy, huh? Hardest promotion. If you're on YouTube, I will walk you through it. But basically, we are looking at WWF, WCW, ECW, comparing the companies. We got a lot of different criteria we're going to look at: in-ring, out-of-ring, macro stuff, micro stuff, best and the worst. We'll get into it. We'll get into all the points and whatnot. First of all, let's give an overview of where we're at in the standings. And now we're in around October of 96, towards the tail end of October. So we're getting towards the end here, just a few more shows. But as the standings are right now, WWF is in the lead with 13 points. WCW is currently in second with 5 points, and ECW is pulling up the rear with 4 points. So we'll see if anything changes there. But first things first, let's grade this pay-per-view, shall we? So now we talked at the end of the episode there, where we were both saying like C plus kind of thing, and I think I still maintain that. Where the fuck is there? It is. Halloween Havoc. I think a C, right? Because we're ranking this, by the way, of course. Scale of S to F. S being one of the best shows of all time. F being a show where I'd rather fuck an anthill than watch. So Halloween Havoc, I think, is good as a C territory show. Or is it a B? Is it a B? It's a good question. And I've mentioned it before. I think next year we're going to switch this to a numerical scale, which I think would be a better representation. But we're already balls deep into this bad boy. So I think either C or B. I'm leaning towards C plus. I think C plus is a good call because we gave In Your House 10 a B. We gave Fall Brawl an A. Fall Brawl having an A makes me think we throw a B at this bad boy, like a B minus, because I don't think Fall Brawl was like dramatically better than this show. You know what? I'm gonna throw a B at it. I'm feeling generous today. Let's throw a B at Halloween Havoc. It was, like I said, no terrible matches. Yeah, the NWO story is red hot. And even though that may have taken away from other stories going on, I think there was enough good to throw a B at this bad boy. We'll throw a B at it. So we move over here. Now we look at each of the promotions and see which one has the highest average grade so far. Currently, WWF still maintains the lead here at about a C plus, being the average. So we go over to the overall scoreboard. And I forget if I mentioned this already, but if you're on YouTube, I'm sharing my screen and you can visually look at all this stuff. So WWF still maintains the highest average grade, so they keep those 6 points. So no change there. Best pay-per-view of the year, still WrestleMania 12, which had an A. Fall Brawl had a B, so of course that would not be the best show of the year. So no change there. WCW Super Brawl, still the worst of the year with an F. So no changes in that realm. Moving on to in-ring. So now we're just talking about the general in-ring product that each of these companies are presenting. Currently, we are tracking WWF as the best overall. Very interesting. I'll tell you one thing about WCW, and we talked about this in the episode. Their finishes to their matches are dog shit, dude. Like, almost to the point where they, like, I wouldn't say they ruin the matches, but they definitely take them down a peg a little bit. You know what I'm saying? There's like that climax, but then it's like, instead of like, it's like if you're on a roller coaster. Like, if you're on a roller coaster, you get to the top of it, you want to have like a nice, fun path down to the end. WCW is like that, but it's like Roller Coaster Tycoon when you take away some of the tracks and the roller coaster goes high, but it shoots up into the air and then falls and plummets to the ground into a fireball. That's kind of what WCW is. So that's a long-winded way of saying I think WWF still has the better overall in-ring product, especially with like Bret Hart's coming back. You still got Shawn doing really great stuff. We're fresh off of Mind Games, the Shawn Mankind stuff. Yeah, you got Mankind and Taker still doing their deal. Owen Hart's around, the Mark Marrows. A lot of good talent over there. The tag team division's even pretty decent. So I think WWF still maintains the best in-ring for now. So they keep that 4 points. Best match, Shawn Diesel, In Your House 7. I don't think anything on this show is better than that. Well, hold on. Let's think about this for a second. So I would say match of the year or match of the night for Halloween Havoc. Probably Ray and Dean, right? Was Ray and Dean better than Shawn and Diesel? Which is interesting because they're very different matches, right? Very different. You got an opening match for the Cruiserweight title, but the athleticism is way more impressive. But then you got Shawn and Diesel, which, I mean, there is some athleticism there, especially on the end of Shawn. But you have that main event. It's for the world title. The build up, the feud has intensity to it. There is an intensity with Shawn and Diesel that I don't think was matched by Ray and Dean. Maybe. See, I'm kind of just thinking out loud here. You know what I'm saying? Maybe I'm wrong. This is tough. It's actually pretty tough. I just really love this Shawn Diesel match, man. I think what may push it, I think Shawn and Diesel still maintains this. Just for the fact, just the stakes and the spotlight given to this match, the energy of that match. Even though the energy of Ray and Dean was great too, I think Shawn and Diesel just slightly ekes it out. Slightly. But yeah. Maybe also, just a thought, feel free to if you're in the Discord, or if you want to message me. A thought for maybe 97, maybe we do like a top 3 deal and then kind of disperse the points accordingly. I don't know, just throwing out thoughts here, but for now, 96, I think Shawn and Diesel still holds on to that. So, worst match of the year. Ultimate Warrior versus Goldust in Your House 7. Yet none, like I've said a couple times, no like offensively bad matches on this show. Worst match of the night, I don't know, probably Jarrett and Giant, but I didn't hate watching it. It was a stupid finish, and not a lot of mustard, or maybe even Arn and Lex Luger, just based on the fact that it was kind of heatless, but mechanically it was good. I mean, we talked about it in the episode, right? So yeah, I don't think anything was worse than Warrior versus Goldust on this show. So WWF keeps that -1 point. So no changes thus far. Moving on to the roster and the star power of each promotion. We got best overall. So right now we're tracking WCW as the best overall roster. Now we're talking the diversity of the styles. We're talking the star power, the mainstream appeal, the presence, just the overall roster, really, the quality of the roster. And right now, I think WCW still holds on to that. Because, there's been the only change since the last time we looked at this is now WCW has Jarrett and Piper, which I wouldn't say is a net negative. So I think WCW holds on to this for now. Just you got the NWO, you got people coming in left and right. You got X-Pac and DiBiase and Jarrett and Jericho. Like they're pretty stacked as of right now. So WCW holds on to that 4 points. Wrestler of the year. We are tracking Mankind as the best. Anybody on WCW doing better than Mankind? Or Shawn Michaels. Those are kind of like the top 2, but they're both WWF. So, I mean, I wouldn't throw Hogan there, even though he's making a splash for sure. These performances in these matches, man, like the Super Brawl show that I referenced earlier as the worst of the year. I mean, just a lot of that, especially in the beginning of the year. We got to take into account kind of the year as a whole as well. So, so not Hogan, maybe a Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio provides a good argument as well. Because Ray's had a couple of good matches with Dean. A really fun match with Psychosis and Hoovitude. He's a very reliable guy, but doesn't really have the character that Mankind has. Mankind has one of the best characters going on in wrestling at this point. But he's also no slouch in the ring. Like we just referenced the Mind Games match, on my latest episode. So he can go in the ring, and even the stuff he was doing in ECW in the beginning of the year, and even like the Boiler Room Brawl type stuff. Like, I think this is a category we're going to have to keep an eye on. But right now, I think in my head, it's Ray and Mick Foley. Mick Foley has the way better character. Ray is probably slightly better in the match quality. So with that math, Yeah, I think Mankind holds on to that. So, unless there's anybody else in WCW, none really pop into mind. Macho Man, maybe. No. Yeah, I think that about does it. So, WWF holds on to Wrestler of the Year, Worst Wrestler of the Year, Ultimate Warrior. Who would be, again, you could also make an argument for Hogan here for Worst of the Year. But I mean, his performance on this show was not bad for the most part. Like, he's being the heel, he's being silly. The finish and the booking of it isn't really on him per se. So, and it wasn't really his execution of it that was bad. So, I think Warrior holds on to this one for now. So WWF keeps that -1 point. So now we move on to Out of Ring. So this is gimmicks, characters, promos, storylines. Best overall. We're tracking ECW as the best. I think I said this last time, and I think it still holds true. WCW has the NWO, which we are also tracking as the best character or storyline going on right now. But as a company, from a company-wide standpoint, I think ECW is just better top to bottom, just more well-rounded. They have a lot of good, the Douglas and the Pit Bulls, Sandman Raven, the Dudley storyline. They got a lot of stuff going on right now. The promos, the backstage interviews, and I think ECW is just a more complete company from a storyline perspective. So, and just a lot of interesting characters. Whereas WCW, it's really the NWO and nothing else. So, so I think ECW holds on to the best overall, but I would say NWO still holds on to the best singular storyline going on right now. So no changes there. Worst character storyline, we're checking Jerry Lawler, just from his various feuds with Ultimate Warrior and Jake Roberts and just general commentary bullshit, Isaac Yankem, all that stuff. So, anything on this show worse than that? I don't think so. The Battle Bowl ring's kind of stupid, but I wouldn't say it's that terrible. Doesn't really get in the way of anything, you know what I mean? It's just an unnecessary garnish, I would say. But other than that, I can't think of anything. I mean, you can argue just the bullshit with the Horsemen and Luger, and there's just not a lot there. But I think it's more of like a neutral indifference than outwardly bad. You know what I'm saying? So I think Jerry Lawler still takes the cake here. So overall, all that to say, no changes this episode here as of Halloween Havoc. But we still got a few shows left in the year for WCW and ECW to try to make a comeback, because WWF is still in the lead with 13, WCW with 5, ECW with 4. And we got, how many shows we got left? We got 6 shows left. We got In Your House Buried Alive. ECW's only got 1 show. They only got November to Remember. And then WWF has Survivor Series and In Your House 12, It's Time. And then WCW, of course, has World War III and Starrcade. So we'll see how the end of the year fleshes out. But keep abreast. I'll keep you abreast of all that stuff. And like I said last time, we'll do a live finale special where we'll take a look at this again. I'll get your feedback as a listener, as a watcher. Do you disagree with any of this stuff? Do you agree? Are you aggressively indifferent? Let's hear it. Let's hear it, baby. But we'll get into that sometime, probably this summer. But with that, I think that's about all Daddy has for you today. Thank you guys for listening and watching. Like, rate, review, follow, all that shit, right? Yeah, I think that's about all Daddy has for you today. We'll be doing anything else I got to plug? Join the Discord. I always forget fucking mention the Discord in the intro, but join the Discord. The link's there in the show notes as well. Also make sure you're subscribed to YouTube, and I think I have a Twitch. If I don't, I'll start one. Make sure to follow me probably on Twitter, is where you're gonna keep the most notified of my happenings. But I think we're gonna start streaming some video games, maybe some retro wrestling, perhaps, maybe a SmackDown 2. Just general live stream. We'll talk a little bit about the current product. Maybe we'll talk, whatever comes up. But I do want to get into the old school video games. Like, I've never played the WCW video games. I grew up a WWF kid, so I never played Revenge or what was it, Backstage Assaults, or didn't ECW have a game too? Like, I want to get into all that stuff. I think it'll be a fun time. So make sure you subscribe to the YouTube, if nothing else. I'll be streaming everywhere. TikTok, I'll probably be live streaming there as well. And yeah, do that. And I think with that, I'll love you. I'll leave you. And I'll leave you with this. Catch it. I just blew you a kiss. If you're listening and you were confused, I blew you a kiss. So now it's just in your ear. My lips are. So. All right. Well, no, you hang up. I'm hard.
Yeah. And the hardest, talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started. It's the hardest, talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started.